What's up, everybody? It's Tony Moze, and today I had the chance to interview James Kakis. The reason why I initially reached out to him was because his career, from the far past, recent past, present, and even future, aligned with my path. James started in non-technical roles, working in sports and hotels as a VIP and office manager. From those roles, he was able to segue into a tech company as a project manager, which then landed him his first sales engineering position, working at companies like Showpad and Salesforce, working well into a senior manager up till a director. In 2010, he founded and launched the Presales Collective, and in 2021, he left the employee field to pursue his position of building his own organization and is working full-time as the Presales Collective. The Presales Collective started in Chicago, Illinois, and was co-founded by James Kakis and Yugi Higashi. Their mission is to elevate the roles of pre-sales in organizations worldwide. They aim to provide pre-sales professionals with resources, knowledge, network, and mentorship to develop long, impactful careers. Their vision is to create a global community of professionals who have a passion for pre-sales. A place where individuals in a pre-sales role or anyone who aspires to be will be supported in their professional development. There are more than 500,000 pre-sales professionals globally. Wow, almost a million, half a million. Yet no organization has existed to support the growth and the development of this group. Are you a sales engineer, solutions consultant, solutions architect, value engineer, or a pre-sales engineer leader? Or are you looking to begin a career in pre-sales? The Presales Collective is a community of pre-sales professionals brought together to help one another grow and develop through community, events, learning, resources, mentorship, and career opportunities. In this interview, I asked James Kakis questions that I was both curious about for my own personal development as an aspiring pre- and post-sales professional, but also to inspire and pique the interest of those who are considering a career in tech, software sales, and on the other end, learn a little bit about the entrepreneurial path. Without further ado, here is my interview with James Kakis.
I want to start off with basically, looking at your journey and stuff. You went from like a non-technical into a technical role. You went from something that was a non-solutions or sales engineering role into a solutions engineering, sales engineering role. I was thinking, I always want to ask that question, what was that one thing that inspired you? What was the impetus or the stimulus that made you say, you know what? Because if you're looking at your project management, or actually let's look first at, when you were working, I was thinking first, what was the thing or series of things that made you say yes first to being a customer engagement manager? And then what was the thing that, and then I guess the second question was, what was the thing or series of things that made you say yes to being a sales engineer at
Sure. I think for me, my life happens, things happen in life and you go in stride. And I had a couple of things in life that altered the trajectory of my career. So I actually picked up my life in Las Vegas. I was midway through my MBA and I moved up to Hawaii, and I was working on a second master's degree and couldn't really get a job. I had a master's in sports sciences from Ohio University, undergrad degree in education, and I was trying to find a job and I couldn't find one. And so I fortunately fell into hospitality operations at Hyatt. And in due time, they made this amazing role for me called the VIP manager. So I created a VIP program. I worked on the beaches of Hawaii and made sure people had a good time. I love the job. It was a great job. But for me, I just wanted something more, right? I wanted something that was a little bit more. And while it was really rewarding, I just felt like there was something else out there. And so I made a move to San Francisco to work in hospitality and help work at the Grand Hyatt San Francisco. And a couple months into the role, I was working long days, long nights, my schedule was all over the place. And I said, this isn't for me. I'm not happy. and I went and made a jump to a hospitality tech company. And that to me is the advice I give everybody, is that there's always some kind of transferable or translatable skills. And for me, I utilize my subject matter expertise. At the time is operations and hospitality. So I went to a technology company that didn't have a sales engineering team at the time, just a engagement manager role, which was post sales mostly. And I came in as someone who knew hospitality. I knew customers. I knew operations. I knew the systems. And so I was able to build instant credibility with the organization because there was mostly just technology people. And I loved that role. And I became kind of the hospitality competitive expert. And so they would start bringing me onto sales calls to help pitch the product and talk about differentiation. And so for me, I was like, all right, I like building and implementation, but this sales thing is a little bit more fun. And so they ended up creating a role for me for the pre-sales role to work in sales engineering. But then I ended up taking a job at Showpad shortly thereafter and being the first sales engineer at that organization who was making a splash in North America. And fortunately rode an amazing wave of massive revenue growth over 4 years and watched the team start from 0 to 25 people globally, right? So it was a lot of fun for me, but the silver lining is just the transferable skills and trying to rely on your subject matter expertise at the end of the day.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So, and then what was the things, of course you went from working a 9 to 5, you worked, at previous companies, you were working for an employer, and then you started branching into something that was like kind of your own, like you were doing the sales engineer with, you were doing the Chicago pre-sales community.
Yep.
You're still doing that now. You also co-authored the book called Raise Your AQ. All right. Yep. And so like, what was the thing or series of things that made you say yes to ditching the 9 to 5 and starting up your own business?
Yeah. I think for me, when I was at Showpad and Salesforce, I started getting involved in sales engineering communities, right? There's a great community in San Francisco that used to meet in person. And I went out to an event early in my career because I was still kind of learning, and I ran into 100+ sales engineers, people who were in the same profession as me. And I loved it. And I was like, this is amazing. Need to connect and network and made friends. And then as that transition, I moved to Chicago for my company Showpad and realized there was no sales engineering organization. There was no community. And so I started one. And I started one that met a couple times a year. We were growing in momentum and it was amazing. But then I had known my co-founder, Yuji Higashi, for quite some time because we were both building startups and we were introduced to each other, and we call each other every couple months, like, hey, how are you doing this? How are you doing that? And we realized if you're not in a couple select cities, like, how do you connect with people? How do you connect with other sales engineers, especially if you're a small company? The answer is you don't, and you can't. So we created the Presales Collective, and what started as an idea to bring pre-sales professionals together last April 2020, 14 months later is a 13,000 person global community. And, things accelerated, we really picked up. And for me, getting out of my 9 to 5, while I wish it was a 9 to 5, or maybe at most times it wasn't, kind of seeing the impact of my decisions was unbelievable. Right. With Presales Collective, people were messaging me all the time that the podcast was helpful to them in their interview process, or helped them get promotion, or Presales Collective introduction got them jobs. And at the end of the day, that was so rewarding to me. I mean, getting those messages was amazing. Right. And still is. And, at some point you start prioritizing, and, the security and the compensation of working in an amazing company like Salesforce was just outweighed by impact of Presales Collective. And so I decided to take a risk. If you can't bet on yourself, who can you bet on, right? Or how can you expect other people to bet on you? And I took a risk and went full-time with Presales Collective early this year in 2021 and haven't looked back since.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's one of the traits of the entrepreneurial, spirit is take that risk. I say to some people, jumping out of planes and making your parachute within midair. Uh,
Exactly it.
so it's
Yep.
awesome. That's great. And then through your time, working up, the rungs of solutions and sales engineering, what would you say to someone who is new to the field, considering a SE, sales engineer, solution engineering role?
Yeah, if someone who's considering it, don't let technical or the word or term technical deter you. I think there's a lot of products out there that are very technical in nature that you need to be hands on a keyboard, and there are a lot that are very business oriented, right? And you just have to understand solution and value. And I think that's a lot of debate we continue to have with the Presales Collective is like, should the role be tech savvy or business savvy? And so, don't let the idea of a technical role deter you from applying or at least exploring. With companies like Presales Collective starting up, they're now an ecosystem of resources that you can learn and get experience without the experience. And that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on at Presales Collective.
Awesome. So just to clarify with a side question about that, does one need to be like, how would you outline this whole idea of sales engineering? Because some people think, oh, well, I have to be a software developer and being able to
Right.
code in Java
Right.
and put backends together and do all these algorithmic
Yeah.
stuff. Like, what would you say about that? Is that true? Is that a myth to debunk?
It's a myth to debunk. I think some organizations really value problem solving. So for me, if you ask me to define what this role is just in one sentence, I'm going to call it a customer-centric problem solver. Not just a problem solver, but a customer-centric. If you like solving problems and you like working with customers to make them happy and make their lives easier, this role is for you. And it just depends on what company that you're in. And so some people like this role because you're in sales, right? But you're not necessarily always carrying a quota. You're not responsible for forecasting. You're not necessarily responsible for pipe gen, and you're partnering. So, don't let those kind of things around the technicalities of the role block you, because if you like problem solving and you like talking to people, this is a great role.
Awesome. So in terms of liking people and of course, in terms of this, what are some lessons you learned from when you started your first role as an SE all the way to the final moments as a director of SE and manufacturing? Like, and would you have changed anything differently?
I probably would have changed a lot of things. I learned a lot. I really did learn, I would say, as an individual contributor, that it's not about me as the SC when it comes to the demo or the presentation. It's not about me. It's not about my AE. It's not even actually about my company. It's about the customer that I'm speaking to and figuring out what their life is and personalizing their experience. Because when you're presenting to them, if you just present what you care about, it might not be what they care about. You need to make sure that there's a difference there. And because that when that light bulb moment goes off for that customer, it's really unbelievable, right? When you can present value or a way to make this person's life easier, what more could you want? I remember as an individual contributor at Showpad, we were doing a proof of concept where they were testing our software, and I was calling up the sales users and asking for a quote and a feedback. And we were talking to a company who did field sales medical devices. And the gentleman told me, I'll never forget, he said, James, my wife loves me right now. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? He said, I have been saving 2 hours a day using your product, and I've been home for dinner every day in the last week. I love it. I'm in. And that made me so happy, right? And it really showcased of that perspective. So again, figuring out what's in it for other people is really big. And as a leader, I've learned that you really have to trust and empower people. As easy as that may sound, creating a real culture of empowerment and of trust is really, really important. It's hard to do, but it's really important. So I would say from an IC to a leader, those are my biggest takeaways.
Awesome. Switching over into your book, that you helped co-author.
Sure.
What is the Sales AQ book, and what inspired you to help co-author this book?
So I don't want to take too much credit. I co-authored one chapter with Devin Reed over at Gong, and Brian Glibkowski is the main author of the book. Actually, I was at a event for the Chicago Innovation Roundtable, which is a roundtable of technical executives that would meet. And Brian, Dr. Glubkowski, actually presented on his framework to a group of technical professionals. And as usually one of the only sales technical professionals in the room, I was like, that is very interesting. And what was so interesting is that the Raise Your AQ framework is around answer intelligence. It means that when someone asks a question, there are 6 different answer types, and sometimes you need to answer twice. And a perfect example of that is that they say some people are left-brained or right-brained. And it goes back to my individual contributor comment. If I answer the way that I want to answer that question, it might not actually resonate with the audience. And so answer intelligence is a framework that teaches you how to answer questions based off the question makeup and based off the persona of the person asking you. And so I was fortunate enough with Devin to co-author the sales chapter.
Sweet. Awesome, man. Definitely everyone who's watching or listening, check out the Raise Sales AQ book that James helped co-author. And for entrepreneurs or prospective business founders with the Presales Collective, what are lessons you've been learning along the way from beginning till now?
Yeah. There's a lot of lessons learned. I've gone through a ton of personal and professional growth over the last, year and a half. I would say the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur is knowing when to turn it off, right? Because there's always something to do with your company, right? There's always something to do. There's always somebody who has a question. And turning that off, I think, is an adjustment for many people. But what I've learned the most is you just have to be really consistent. And I'll leave it at that. In terms of your programs, your content, your offering, you have to create predictability to your audience. Because if you just say, hey, here's this website, we're going to put out content and it's sporadic and it's all over the place, people aren't going to know what to expect, and then they'll fall off because there's an absolute war for attention out there. There's so many different pieces of content and mediums, both personal, professional. So, being consistent with the Presales Collective, we have a blog that goes out every Monday. We have a podcast that goes out every Monday. We have webinars that are every other week, right? Our Leadership Collective has events on a certain cadence as well. And so that predictability ends up creating a little bit of trust with your community and with your end users. So it can be predictable.
Awesome. So final question, where can people, where are the outlets that people could find Presales Collective as well as be able to chat and virtually rub elbows with you?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. So presalescollective.com is our main website. We have a number of content mediums, programs. Whether you're in this role, you're wondering for what more information is, that is your place to go. We also have a Slack community where people can engage and connect and learn more from other professionals around the world. So presalescollective.com/Slack. And for me, I'm a big LinkedIner. I don't have any other social media at that point beyond LinkedIn, really. So you can find me at linkedin.com/in/James Kakis, Kaikis. I love engaging on social media, or excuse me, on LinkedIn specifically. It's always good to provide professional opinions and commentary.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Sure.